Hey there guys, today I'm going to be talking about what's going on with myself and the Cycle Frontier. As someone who has uploaded on average a video a day, maybe a day and a half, for the last like 5, 6 months on this game, it's been kind of weird not posting something for over a week, almost two. And hopefully this will answer your questions as to why, if you even had any to begin with. First of all, no, it's not the whole dead game. Why bother? Why are you playing this kind of thing that's been going on lately? Because I haven't really played the game in about 6 weeks. If you didn't know, I'm a father to a couple of kids, and my daughter was born just 3 weeks ago. To go along with that, my family and I had to relocate temporarily to be closer to my wife's OB and the hospital. We kind of live in the middle of nowhere. At this point, you might be thinking, well, if you haven't played in 6 weeks, how have you been uploading the Cycle Frontier content still? And the answer is that I had such a massive backlog of recorded raids that it filled up an entire 1 terabyte hard drive with video, and I had been just slowly working my way through them. And no, I still haven't really gone through it all. There's still a bunch of stuff. I reckon I could get like five, somewhere between like 5 and 8 more videos worth of footage in there somewhere. But even after everything I've posted, I could still be going, but I haven't. So why? I've been finding just going through like the editing process to be really boring and stale. So when I actually like loaded up the game again, when I got home, it was boring and stale. It's just all cores and brutes and basilisks at a high end, or just basically white kit prospectors, and they're just getting thrown into a meat grinder. It was just turning into a frustration to simply load up Vegas. So yeah, loading up the game was the same. I ended up playing some Escape from Tarkov, which brought me back into the more realistic Milsim style of FPS I came from, but my time has been taken up by some new responsibilities, and honestly, the online competitive style is something that I can't really commit to as much as I used to anymore. If you haven't noticed, I don't really stream all that much, but when I do, it's usually like really late at night when everyone's asleep. But anyway, so I transitioned while I was away. I had a request to recreate a base build inside of No Man's Sky, and I did that. If you were interested, it's on the screen now. But it brought me back into the more casual games, and I've been really enjoying playing Valheim recently, which I'm still currently playing. And I'm doing a bit of a playthrough to coincide with the latest update, Mistlands, with a couple of friends. Just posted the first episode a couple of days ago if you were interested in it. Looking at chunky videos with each episode taking on each boss, and with me being a builder lover, I'll probably end up throwing a few build videos too. So, what does this all mean for me and the Cycle Frontier? Well, things have slowed down, that's for sure. I'm still logging in daily for that Aurum to claim it, but outside of the remaining video I have, I probably won't be posting any more high tier gameplay, purely because after hundreds of raids with the same shit, it's boring. I had started a solo only series with the intent of more of a game walkthrough series showing my perspective when trying to complete tasks and obtain items for the quarters and jobs. And honestly, it sounded fun in theory, and I was going to have like a big focus on VoIPing and actually avoiding combat with other prospectors unless a task specifically requested it. And then I actually started to play it and ran into a couple of problems. So this was not a brand new account. It was a year and a half old. It had played during the betas. It has money spent on Steam. So everything that was, theoretically there as a requirement to be in the trusted lobbies, but I was immediately killed by a cheetah. So I thought maybe this might have been just a coincidence. Jumped into a couple more, and it kept happening. And then I was just constantly running into duos with like full exo cores and brutes, and like this was from like the second raid on. It was kind of ridiculous. But yeah, if there is enough interest in that, I might start it up again. I might try again, either on another account or on that account, or maybe on my main after deleting like my entire stash or something and working off of info slides instead of the actual in-game quests. What follows all of this that I've been talking about now is it's actually something that I've been working on for well over a month. I've written a script for this video multiple times only to delete it like 2 hours later because I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted to talk about the cycle in its current state and its future, but I wanted it to be known that it's coming from a place of love and appreciation for the game. And now I don't have the script anymore, so this is going to be just sort of like my thoughts and genuine feedback and suggestions for the game, where it sits and what needs to be done. So enjoy. The future of the Cycle Frontier is a hot topic amongst fans of the game and the extraction genre it falls under, and with nearly the entire first season terrorized by cheaters, things weren't looking good. But after some amazing work by the development team behind the game, Jaeger, Season 2 launched into the best cheater-free experience online competitive gaming has seen in a long time. Although, with a new map and new content releasing with it, came a whole new set of problems. Hey guys, my name's Spoon, been playing the game since the first closed beta, got close to 1500 hours in the game currently, and in this video today we are going to be talking about the current direction the game is heading, some of the issues, some of the possible fixes and content ideas. Okay, so that was, was actually my intro that I had pre-recorded a long time ago. I don't feel like that's still relevant to this conversation, but to kick things off, I'm going to start off by talking about Call of Duty's DMZ mode and how that relates to the cycle and its identity. So DMZ is actually a really important topic for our little game because with its release, it's actually stripped the cycle of its last piece of unique identity. Now, I say that because back in the betas, the best way to describe the game was with two descriptions. Casual, friendly, Tarkov in space. Tarkov in space has definitely been taken away by Marauders now, and a smooth, casual, friendly extraction shooter has been solidified with DMZ, leaving the Cycle Frontier somewhere awkwardly in the middle of DMZ and Tarkov in like a completely different setting, which honestly might sound good because you would think that, well, they would use the cycle as like a stepping stone to get from DMZ to Tarkov and prepare for a more hardcore style. But to see if this was going to be the case, we need to actually take a hard look at the cycle and identify some key issues and how to resolve them. To start off, the setting of the game is post-apocalyptic, like I said, it's a different setting. It's sci-fi with aliens and sounds cool in theory, but in practice it turns into something Resident Sleeper like DayZ half the time, without any of the hardcore survival mechanics to keep you invested and immersed in the world. The current design of the mobs in the game is rather lackluster with not enough variety, unrewarding, and too easy to avoid. The alpha variants to me feel like the Division back in the day, where it's just, you know, as you progress, the mobs just get more bullet spongy, and it's not really any more of a challenge. It's just more bullets. That's about it. But lately, I've actually been playing Stalker Anomaly, and holy fuck, does that game dive deep in with its difficulty of enemies and jump scares, and that's a scary game. Wow. But like, it just keeps players invested in keeping, noticing noises, looking for movement. Everything in that game is fucking horrifying, but it keeps you immersed in the world at all times. And if you want to see that, then sub to the channel because those videos are definitely coming. But the sad reality of the world of Fortuna 3 is that it is static. It's extremely predictable and dead. Now, thematically, yes, this is how it should be. We are dropping down to scavenge for parts, mine minerals in the ruins of a human civilization a few decades old. The problem that we come across is that when you put everything together, nothing really makes sense. The creatures are aggressive, but don't fight each other. They aren't hunting around to root out any remaining humans. They aren't capable of the destruction we see, and it leaves a rather confused feeling when you notice it. But that's not even the real that's not even the real issue. Although this is fine, if you lean into more of a survival game, that would force you into areas and engage you with different mechanics. But in the cycle, there's nothing really like that. So we are left with the world that feels empty and unrewarding because there's zero reason to engage with it. Now, there's different ways to improve upon the current style of the game, but most of them would actually require a rather drastic change to what makes the Cycle Frontier the game that it is. It's an extraction shooter, it's very casual friendly, but at the same time, that's kind of what's hurting it. There's no real drive to go really deep into it outside of just PvP. And don't get me wrong, like the movement and the gunplay in this game are phenomenal. It's great. It's some of the best gameplay for like a FPS game that I've played in a long time. I really really enjoyed it. But when you're dropping down into a game and it just feels dead, the PvE isn't something you want to engage with. You're just looking for PvP. It's boring. Now, if we want to go down the path of taking drastic game design change, then we could look at some other games. For an example, for myself, taking an inspiration from Rust with minor base building and crafting being applicable to the planet surface would definitely be interesting. It would encourage staying in raid longer, leaning more into that 6 hour server limit, but also would let you interact with more areas of the map, make more items useful, and could probably lead to like an in-raid respawn mechanic. The point is that the current game design is too generic with the lack of content to see any real success and growth at this point, and with the content that is being released as slowly as it is, it's just going to happen with more and more players are going to split to either the more casual DMZ or hardcore Tarkov. And please don't get me started on the matchmaking. It's honestly as frustrating for the endgame players as it is for the new guys. Moving on, we can take what would honestly be a more realistic inspiration for a game design change, and it's something that the cycle actually used to have. Abilities. We are in space on an alien world centuries in the future. It's not that wild of an idea that having something like little rocket boosters in your boots to help you get around a hostile environment is just never going to be thought of. So, having abilities in the game could help it to solidify its identity. I mean, if we take a look at games like Valorant and Super People, they're basically copy paste of CS:GO and PUBG, but all they've done is just added abilities, and they've gotten rather popular. So I know it's not going to be copy paste of like Tarkov or DMZ with abilities, but it definitely has its own unique art style and gameplay. But the game needs something to set it apart from its competitors. It's no longer unique enough to draw new players in. But assuming no drastic game design changes are going to happen, there's a few things that we could actually do to improve upon the current style of the game to make it more appealing to new players and game players alike. So, like a couple ways we could actually, make the game a bit more lively while still fitting with the whole post-apocalyptic thematic style, but to be add in something like Korolev robot guards that are patrolling a station, an area, just killing anything that they come across, just creating noise, making something happen on the map. You could even give them like a predetermined path with like a key on them. So if you took them out, you got a key, but they like had an in-game objective, right, to travel from point A to point B collect object X, travel to point C and deliver it, and at that point they would extract. Now you would have the opportunity of killing them and taking the stuff, pretty much. But they would be shooting anything and everything along the way, whether it be mobs or players. The whole point would be to create noise and to make the worlds feel more alive while still fitting that whole post-apocalyptic style. You could have some gun nut have installed some wacky home defense system with like the miniguns you see on the evac ships, and for whatever reason it's come back online, and you would then have to go and like hack into it, take control of it, which would trigger some sort of like mini tower defense little mini game. And at the end of it, if you were successful, the homeowner's safe would like pop up from the ground and give you some loot, something like that. It just, you know, draw in. It's like emitting some kind of weird noise that's drawing in all of the creatures. There's a whole bunch of things that would still fit a post-apocalyptic world that would greatly enhance the majority of players' experience in the game, and I feel like we're not seeing any of that. Hey guys, if any of the other games that I have mentioned in this video interest you, then please make sure to hit that bell button down below. If not, the way YouTube works is basically if you're just watching the cycle content and not searching for any other categories, then you're only really going to be served up cycle content, regardless of who you sub to. So yeah, Valheim, Stalker, DMZ, Tarkov, maybe even Skyrim or something at some point. I don't know. More single player, more RPG focus, a little less on the hardcore online competitive style of games. Not to say that I'm not going to continue playing them. I'm just, yeah, I need to pause the game every now and then, you know? To me, it still boggles my mind that closed beta, the closed betas, we were playing the whole game. I never thought that was going to be the case. I always thought that, you know, closed beta, okay, we're getting some of the guns, we're getting a couple of the maps. When the release comes out, you know, we're going to have, you know, like another map or two. We're going to have, you know, twice as many guns. There's going to be all this stuff to do. I thought we were just getting a teaser. But we got the whole game. Season 1 came out and we got the Alpha Crusher dungeon, which arguably is the worst piece of content. Oh, sorry, arguably was the worst piece of content in the entire game. It was completely unrewarding. The items you could craft with the heart, I think it took 3 hearts for a night vision helmet and then 3 for the karma or something like that. So you had to do this boring ass activity 3 times to get anything useful from it. Now it's a bit different, but still it could be improved, and we'll talk about that later. But it was just wild that coming from the betas into the open game was the same thing. And I gave it a chance going from Season 1 to Season 2 because they brought out like Tharis Island. But when you look at it, what they did with Tharis Island was crazy. Honestly, it probably some of the worst decisions you could ever do for like a competitive game with an economy. Like with the release of Tharis Island. Oh. Okay, anyway, let's talk about Tharis Island first. So I honestly really enjoy Tharis Island. I think it's a very complex little map. It's very deceivingly complex with like multiple twists and turns. It's got the void, a bottomless pit you can fall in if you mess up your jumps. There's a whole lot of mobs in your way, makes noise. The map's broken up into like an outer ring with 2 central separate islands with the quarry and the storm pillar in the middle. So traversing the island in itself is going to be a challenge with all of the monsters that are going to aggro on you. They're going to make some noise, and to be honest, the vertical audio in the game for the most part has been fairly accurate, and it's pretty easy to determine like where noise is coming from. And the threat of other prospectors became ever more apparent as more players made their way to the shores of the island. it really did give birth to like the whole ratting, sitting in a corner with like a very dark corner with the bulldog playstyle. So much so that it ended up bleeding out into like Bright Sands and Crescent Falls, and really left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. How that came out. So at the bottom of Darris Island, you've got the Forge as well. The Forge is alien, and if you didn't know, there are aliens on Fortuna 3, supposedly extinct. They're known as the progenitors, and the Forge utilizes the power of the storm to do whatever they intended, but we've found a use for it, and that's to upgrade our gear to higher rarities and add traits to armor and backpacks. And you do that by using various items in the game. I've got a whole guide on that if you are interested, with a complete walkthrough on how to do it. I'll throw that up on the screen now. And with all of the changes that were made to the Forge in the first week or two of the season, it honestly feels really good in terms of balance for risk versus reward when you're forging gear. And I believe in that guide video I just talked about, that's actually the way that the devs intended you to engage with it. That's by like scavenging the items you want from the map before going down, and that's because like 90% of the traits can be, or 90% of the items for the traits can be found on the island pretty easily. So it seems like an intended mechanic or an intended gameplay design. Honestly, I absolutely loved it. It gave the game a true like repeatable endgame activity outside of PvP and making money. One that fully engaged myself with multiple aspects of the game and its mechanics. You know, from like mining ores and killing creatures, completing puzzles. The Forge honestly came as a breath of fresh air into the world of Fortuna 3. It was almost perfectly designed. I got a couple gripes with it. The storm only activating during the storm being the only thing that activates the Forge, and a couple other things to do with actually forging. They did change the storm timer on the island, and that was a step in the right direction, but there's a couple other things that they should do. I've mentioned it quite a few times before, but you know, having some kind of items to be able to power up the Forge using Nick Oil would be very good, in my opinion. But you know, you've also got other things that actually harness the power of the storm, like the glowing bright cap mushrooms and what do you call them? What are they? Charged spinal bases from Striders. But there's another thing that I think would fit very well. If you haven't noticed already, I'm a big fan of keeping things lore accurate and getting immersed into worlds. So this comes from that kind of place, and that would be that if you've actually completed the battery puzzle in the Osiris Research Lab and you've gained access to the loot room, then you would have noticed the fourth battery inside. Currently, there's no point to this battery, but I have actually messed around with it and taken it all the way down to the Forge. It doesn't do anything there, by the way, either, but you can get it down there. So this battery, let's make it red instead of blue, because it's overcharged. It's a prototype battery device created on the island in an attempt to interface our technology with the progenitors. Place down like a special location deep. Place down like a special location deep inside of the caverns. It doesn't have to be like at the Forge itself, but this would act as your conduit for the battery to the Forge. And bam, we've got a single charge for the Forge in the form of this battery. And the neat part about this is that the storm resets the battery puzzles on all the map, and as such would place the battery back in the research lab every storm cycle, which fits with the storm powering the Forge. So on top of that, there's a couple more like design aspects of the Forge that don't really make too much sense. First of all, when you get lucky and you get an upgraded bar when you're forging ingots, my god, it is the most annoying fucking thing ever. getting lucky at the forge for that, because what happens is instead of getting your three ingots that you were trying to craft, you get two, and then you get one of the higher rarity, and that means it screws up your entire forge plan. And going down to the forge is something that is extremely hard to balance because all of these items weigh so much. So you're usually going down there with the intent of getting just enough materials to make the things that you want. So getting lucky and getting this extra, oh, not extra, sorry, getting this upgraded bar, it's so frustrating because it throws out everything that you're working towards. I don't understand why it wasn't just an extra, like, additional bar on top of the three that you were trying to forge. It makes no sense, and it seems like one of the most simplest things to fix, yet, we're 2 months into season two and it still hasn't happened.
Interesting.
On top of that, I think you should be able to influence the effectiveness of the perks that you have. So if you take the meteor cores, for example, on the backpacks,
3,800.
so the meteor cores will provide a perk of either increased bag capacity or reduction for all of the weights of items inside of it. To apply the perk, you need two meteor cores currently, but I think you should be able to apply it with one, two, or three meteor cores. So one meteor core would allow those traits to be in the effective range of 10 to 30, two for 10 to 50, and three for 30 to 50. That way, you're sacrificing more items to ensure a better trait for your gear. It's a bit like more into that risk versus reward, while also making it feel like you're not wasting your time going down there to do something like that to begin with.
Okay, I don't think we go this way. I think that's a bait.
So earlier I mentioned some problems with the map and how it was released, and some design and some decisions made that really confused me. And releasing early info to players
Like, that's kind of cool and all.
led to
A lot cooler if it was
overall
frequent
like
storms, like
the
California,
biggest imbalance
so it's
in
kinda
most
like
bullshit
way
the
more.
game has ever seen. So I was someone who was on Tharis Island from day one. I had several sets of forge gear before any changes were made. It was stupidly easy to get, and they disabled the forge on day two, right? When they disabled the forge, I think had like 6 rows of like exo armor and bloody legendary bags and shit like that. And
We
honestly,
should have seen something by now.
people like myself, people like people who were like interacting with the forge would have kept playing the game anyway. So what they should have done is they should have just removed all forge gear from the game at that point,
There, maybe?
and then started again with a better designed forging system that they actually came up with very shortly after.
This looks like it.
And then, of course, you had all of the economic issues, which were pretty obvious from the start as well. But they got sorted out relatively quickly as well. But I mean, like with all of these issues that
There's a floor there.
came
There's a
out
floor
within
there.
the very first week of Paris being available,
Look down.
it became pretty damn obvious that there just wasn't enough playtesting of the Forge. Took 2 days for them to disable it. But honestly, the Forge straight up should not have been accessible
This is
that
how it's gonna
early
play
to
out,
anyone.
okay?
The entirety of the Storm Pillar should have remained a mystery for probably a couple of weeks, and
That is not the
I have a
place.
rather
That is
good
not the
idea
place.
of how they should implement a game mechanic
Oh, it did
for that and how it
6.7
should
million
be
damage.
for each wipe. So if you haven't noticed, I'm quite a fan of things fitting from like a lore perspective, so keep that in mind when I'm trying to
Pressure,
explain
pressure
this.
again.
Currently, there is no reason for a season's wipe in the game. Nothing special happens, it just happens. But if we put in place like a superstorm, similar to what we saw with Cataclysm, then we can start to like justify some of the things that come with a wipe. Map changes occurred because excessive rain eroded some soil and opened up new cave systems or something like that. Electrical interference damaged the station, and unfortunately, your quarters were all but destroyed in a fire. The storms have shifted and now allowed access to previously inaccessible islands, Varus. But for this point, to do with the Forge, this supercell level storm fuels the growth of a certain green crystal. The Alpha Crusher dungeon is blocked by a thick wall of this crystal, and it should be used in the Storm Pillar as well to block it off after each season's wipe. To break into this area, the station's factions are working towards that goal, but they require some certain items donated from the prospectors to help speed up the process. A process that would take up to 2 weeks without any outside help, and I'm a huge advocate for player engagement. So inside of these 2 weeks, if you were to donate high tier items like oil, leadium, Alpha Crusher hearts, heads, exotic gear, things like that, then as a community we could work towards unlocking the Forge earlier by hitting some weird arbitrary limit for gear donated. This could also open the this could also open the way for a new cosmetic being titles, with the person who donates the most being a title of the generous, and that would honestly really get some people going and engaged in donating gear, I reckon. I have another point I want to talk on later, but we'll circle back to this shortly. And so we kind of covered pretty much, Tharas Island and Season 2. With Season 3, we are getting a couple of things, and the devs have actually just released a video about Season 3 and what's coming, and man, they couldn't be more vague. Like, outside of the Howler, there's nothing... There's no draw there, Like, I think they're trying to be a bit secretive and mysterious with what's coming, and man, that is just the wrong approach right now. The game is struggling for attention at the moment, and being secretive to a small audience isn't going to really excite anyone. We need to know that there's a lot of things coming, not, oh yeah, we've got a new monster and the station's getting a revamp, and ooh, stay tuned. It's not the play. We need to know, like, there's guns coming, there's new monsters coming, there's 30 odd quests coming. We're going to add in this, we're going to do this. You need to drive the hype for the current player base first. It seems like they're acting like they still have that 40,000 concurrent player base from Season 1 launch, and they don't, and they probably won't have that again for a very, very, very long time, if ever. Which doesn't mean that the game won't be successful in the future, it just means that they need to change their approach. So for Season 3, with the roadmap, let me just bring it up here real quick.
Put in pure iron, I think, to make the purple.
So Season 2 and beyond is what they've called it. So Season 3, this is what they've told us. Watch the skies, new tools of the trade, new enemy, the Howler, improvements to the station for Tuna 3 and some quality of life updates, events, new quests, new gadgets, consumables for more tactical depths, new sci-fi weapons, new Fortuna Pass content, and anti-cheat improvements. So new sci-fi weapons, plural, so at least 2 is what I'm getting from that. They should have teased one of them at least. Should have said something about the events, if they're going to do like events consistently or just like one per season, like with Cataclysm or something like that. But we just needed to know more. It's too vague and not enough. Not enough content to drive any sort of hype amongst the remaining player base, in my opinion. So post Season 3, we've also got Map 4 coming. Guilds, Crafting 2.0, console support, which would be massive. Shooting range, more new enemies, more anti-cheat improvements. Actually, going back to console support, if you yeah, at the start of the video I talked about DMZ, and that's kind of why I think console support is a bit too late, because the majority of people playing on console just go and play DMZ. But in that, we've also got things like Map 4. That's certainly exciting. I know where I might want to go, and I'll talk about that soon. Guilds, interesting concept. What kind of guilds you might have? You might have the Prospectors Guild, the Enforcers Guild, like a PvP guild, the Thief Guild maybe? It honestly depends on the kind of content that they're going to be putting out in Season 3 and before guilds or with guilds. But that's certainly interesting. Shooting range is a definite like requested feature. That actually used to be in the game. And more new enemies, more mobs, just, double the amount. Make them hard as fuck. I don't care. It just needs more. But like moving on from here, there's still a lot of things that the game can be doing that it's not. To keep people engaged, to get more people in, and they might need some help. I don't know. I've sent a whole bunch of suggestions and things in that Discord or direct DMs to a couple of the devs, and I would like to think that they've taken it on board, but like these are things that have been suggested, or not necessarily the things I'm going to talk about, but a lot of the things that have been suggested and requested from closed beta 1, like a crafting queue for the gear printer, still isn't in the game. But anyway, moving on. So how can we, first of all, keep the current player base engaged? So I would like to see some kind of achievement system brought into the game, with two different sets of achievements, one being account lifetime achievements and the other being seasonal achievements. So for things like the seasonal achievement, I've gone to this scenario many times. Craft 1,000 items during the season. Now, it's pretty simple, but it definitely helps people to learn more crafts, realize the importance of different items, like print resin and optic glass for creating high power optics and things like that, what items you need to make better armors, passively obtaining items to just simply craft stims. But we can also get some pretty good gear. And honestly, it would like act as a really useful tool for the devs on how to improve the player experience with the goddamn crafting system. But we can actually get some pretty cool rewards for doing something like this as well. I would like to see like incremental rewards for something of this scale. So 1,000 items is a big ask to do. I mean, the season is currently 120 days long, which in my opinion is a massive mistake at the current state of the game. But so 1,000 items during the season. At 250, you get like a wooden mallet as a melee weapon skin. At 500, you get a gilded version, and at 1,000, you get Thor's mighty hammer Mjolnir. And just small things like that would be huge for player engagement during the season. And you would generally want seasonal achievements to have something to do with the season. So for season 2, you would obviously have a lot of things to do with Tharis Island and the Forge. So you might have things like kill X amount of marauders during the storm, forge this bit of gear, things like that. And then for account achievements, you should probably set goals that seem rather unattainable. Something like really fucking grindy. That provide a challenge while holding like a worthwhile reward at the time to show like the time and skill required to complete them. You could have things like getting X amount of kills with a weapon, evac X amount of times in a row, evac with X amount of loot value of X or higher, and I would like to see a specific thing for this as well. But getting, let's just say, 1,000 prospector kills with each weapon is one of the things. You can have progressional rewards like the crafting achievement that I just, or crafting
Is that the crane?
task that I was just talking about. So
Two of them now.
for this, you would get weapon charms. So weapon charms of the weapon that you are currently getting the kills with.
55 special,
At
hit him once.
At 50 kills, you unlock a bronze variant for the weapon charm. 100 is silver, 250 gold, 500 like a sparkling diamond skin, and the final reward at 1,000 kills, you could skin the weapon charm with any skin or coating you currently own. And I think that would be fucking cool as, you know? But keep in mind that not everything needs a cosmetic reward, but there are also a lot of things that can be slotted in here. I know cosmetics really drive a lot of a player base to actually do things, but we can have things like expansion of your quarters with like a general design difference. Like imagine mounting a crusher head in your trophy room, evac ship skins, drop pod smoke trail colors, various particle effects. You know, the list really does go on and on with a sci-fi game like this.
I'm 1 HP.
But also, I'm
90 HP to me.
not sure if you guys know about a game called RuneScape. Probably
Backing up.
all of you do. But they have like a completionist cape and a reward cape. A reward cape. They have like a completionist cape and a max cape. So max cape comes from getting all of your skills to the maximum level, and a completionist cape is for obviously 100% completing the game. And you could slot those in pretty good for things like the seasonal achievements and the account lifetime achievements. So obviously you'd have the completionist cape for the account lifetime achievements, and then the max cape for the seasonal achievements. They would be really flowy and cool in design, and in RuneScape you can color them however you want to suit whatever fashion you're trying to attain. And honestly, I would love to see something like that in the game. Right, so that's like a system that would provide
I'm one.
content, loosely worded content, for the current player base without actually being any gameplay. So let's jump into a bit of gameplay then. Currently, one of the most requested events is a faction war, and outside of just like a little event, you could use it for quite a few different things. And to be honest, it could be the best platform for introduction of new weapons. Obviously, it's going to require. Obviously, this plan is going to require the shooting range, but after that is added, so let's say they stick with the 120-day season cycle. After 2 months, we're going to have the faction war, and the faction war is going to go for a month, 30 days. And at the start of the faction war, each of the factions is going to put forward a new prototype design for a weapon to the public. Now, each of the prototypes would be available for use in the shooting range, with their rarities kept secret. To give the player just a feel for the gun, just a taste of what they're going to be fighting for. But this would all stay in the range all the way up until a winner of the event has been crowned. At that point, their weapon will be put on display in the center of the station. They're going to be the winners, so they're going to have like their banners and stuff all over the station. You know, massive celebration of the faction war, and their weapon's going to be put into mass production for the following season. For the event itself, one of the prototypes it's unveiled to each of the prospectors. So they have that going for them. They have their favorite factions already. And at that point, you will have the option to pledge yourself to one of each of the factions. Completing jobs and contracts for your faction will earn you points. In the competition, killing prospectors loyal to the others will gain points, and completing like end-game activities like ICA's oil, Korolev's Ladium Trill, and Osiris's dungeon will also earn points. Players would be encouraged to work together, so the way to do that would be to provide a unique banner upon pledging to your faction, and this is so you can throw it down and show others that you're currently working for like Osiris. And you go, oh, you're Osiris, I'm Osiris, oh, let's not kill each other. And you go, I'm Osiris, you're Korolev, oh, it's on, you know, you got to get them points.
I killed him, okay. Okay, fuck.
But yeah, if the 120-day season cycle is to continue, then we should get 60 days of a new season, moving into a 30-day faction war event, have 2 weeks of a break, and go back to the normal game. And then the last 2 weeks being the end of season event, like the Cataclysm from season 1. During the end of season event, it would be a cool way to drive hype for the new gun if, let's just say, someone smuggled like a shipment of the prototypes out of the station, but lost them on the planet's surface, and they were now exceedingly rarely found or craftable during the end of season event. Back to the faction war though, at the end of the 1 month challenge, so you're going to have the prototype on display on a pedestal in the center of the station, all the banners and everything, but just extra celebration. The winners are now applying like a 50% discount of all their gear until the end of season. And like circling back to the point I was talking about earlier with how the Forge shouldn't be accessible, for getting rid of the crystal, you can also like put it down as well, this faction has just won the faction war. They've got this new manufacturing contract, they've got all this money to burn. Okay, cool. You are now also involved in the main effort of clearing the crystal. Or you can put it on the other 2 factions for losing as a bit of a penalty. But that sort of gets people engaged with the other factions. So, you might have Osiris win by a landslide in Season 3. But then Season 4, everyone has to work with ICA and Korolev to get the Forge open, so you get a lot more people invested in the other factions, but then you would want people invested with Osiris for the new weapon. There's a bit of a contradictory point there. But something else that constantly comes up as well is repeatable rewards from the Battle Pass after you hit level 100, and you should honestly just get something every 5,000 experience, which is about 13 contracts. Every 13 contracts, every 5,000 XP, it will grant you an additional reward of like a salvage token. The tokens are a worthwhile reward specific to the higher tier of insurance, but not like outright rewarding Aurum, or just give out 10 Aurum every 5,000 XP. Doesn't really make too much difference. I know I would definitely prefer the Aurum, but with the current free-to-play model of the game, it might not be a realistic thing to expect. So let's jump into a few game content ideas. So we touched on it earlier with the prototype battery inside of Tharis Island to charge up the Forge. We could take that idea and run it with the other maps as well, and then you would now have three separate puzzles on each map, and inside of the loot room of each puzzle you would have a prototype weapon, prototype battery inside of it that you could place and create a larger puzzle. I don't really know exactly how you would implement that, but that would be something more to keep people in a raid longer, doing things that they wouldn't normally do. I know puzzles aren't exactly the most thrilling content, and not many people really enjoy them. I do a little bit sometimes. The guns you can get are pretty damn good usually, but something I would like to see is some like really rare variant of No. So the way I would imagine it would work is you would do the puzzle, open the loot room, get your loot, and in the corner you're going to have 2 things. You're going to have the battery itself, and you're going to have a hint of where to place said battery. So for an example, you've just done the water facilities puzzle. Inside you've got your battery there, and on the bed right next to it you've got an ancient bone. Right, so an ancient bone would be a reference to the Osiris quest, where you had to go to the Eastern Caverns to collect 3 ancient bones and hand them back to Osiris. The ancient bone on the bed would not be lootable, just so people couldn't cheese that that quest. But the point would be that battery's holder is located somewhere in the Eastern Caverns. You could have things like a machete for the jungle, like a waterfall diorama for waterfall labs, that kind of thing. And I would really like to see some kind of like super rare variant of hints. So like if you had 10 possible
Blue here's dead as well.
locations.
Yeah, I think that was it. I think the Marauder got him. Whoa, whoa!
Kill him, kill him, kill him.
So if you had like 10 possible locations, then getting a unique set of 3 would be like a 1 in 700 odd chance, I think.
Get him.
Yeah, he's good.
Something like that, maybe. I think it's like 1 in 720, so it's pretty rare. And this scenario, I would imagine, being on Crescent Falls, right? So
Dead. He's dead.
with the first 2 locations being rather like random and not really mattering too much, but the third one would be at the end of the Alpha Crusher dungeon. So you would need to go into a raid with the beacon to do the dungeon if it isn't done. Go all the way through the dungeon to place the battery at the end in the final loot room.
Yeah.
And then I would love to see something like a stone door drop down at the end to a massive loot room with,
The fuck was that? Okay.
like, honestly, a guaranteed exotic, guaranteed legendary weapon for something that rare and something that takes that much time. But like outside of that, we could also have
I'm dead here.
stuff like a ship arrival from Earth. You know, it's been a bloody long time since we've heard from the people on Fortuna 3. Maybe we should go and investigate.
I actually.
And Earth sends a ship to Fortuna 3, but it arrives mysteriously unmanned.
Yeah, I died.
Honestly, something that would be really, really good for newer players would be a voiced introduction for
So confused.
each map with like little missions, like a little campaign sort of thing. Single player, obviously, but you don't keep any of the loot. Very similar to the tutorial. It's more so just to give you a feel for the map. So you know, like
Right, Trev?
the tutorial really gives you a feel for the game. But Crescent Falls should, like, if you have one for Crescent Falls, it should really
Blue with the shadow.
introduce you to the alpha variants of the
Oh, yeah, that was.
Two
of the
abyssal
animals
alloys?
and also the Crusher, and then for Tharis Island, it should introduce you to some of the new materials, the Void,
Holy.
maybe something to do with the Forge, maybe a hint to do with the Forge, but not actually going down there.
That head's probably 50% of the.
Printing queues, crafting really just fucking sucks. I
You are
hate it.
alone, you know that,
Printing
right?
queues would go a long way doing something like that.
You did, man.
Contract skipping. We should be able to skip fucking contracts. One script to skip in easy. 3 for medium. Somewhere between 5 and 10 for hard. A kill cam comes in with insurance. End game raids. So you're gonna get a 4th map. I touched on. I know where I want to go.
Up top.
The destroyed planet
Down there,
we
down
see up in the sky. I reckon that'd be sick to go there.
Yeah, no,
A mate of mine suggested like creating
Headshot
like a
both.
suit that helps you to survive on that planet. I think that'd be an amazing piece of content.
Reload.
Something that is probably really, really needed. Purchasable armor and bags up to blue. I think that would really help that gear disparity gap. So once you get progress far enough into the quest line, you would unlock purchasing green, and then further you would unlock purchasing blue. And at that point, it would just come down to farming money. So you would have whole lot of people just doing money runs. So you'd see a lot more people in the jungle, farming marauders, farming
I
the
hit him like.
No, that's still alive.
farming the focus crystals and things like
Still
that,
alive, man.
instead of whatever the hell we currently
Right here.
have. And lastly,
Blue, blue. Just purple.
something I would like to see that's not really in the game,
Wait, I didn't kill.
and it wouldn't even affect me, but YouTube drops. So currently we have Twitch drops, and they drive a lot
I don't know
of
how I didn't kill him, man.
attention and eyes to the game, which is good. It's a good marketing tactic. But I think there's something that
Gosh, dude. I lit
is
up
really
again.
like a possibility there, and that would be for like
I'm hurt half.
the devs to coordinate with their YouTube affiliates and partners to create a video that for each week you'd have like 1, 2, or 3 videos nominated, and if you watched it, then you will be rewarded with an in-game drop, similar to Twitch. I'm not an affiliate or partner, so that is not something that would involve me. But the idea would be to, drive enough engagement with the video that it starts to be recommended to, people that are more so looking at games like DMZ and Tarkov. So it's in the same kind of genre, but it's not exactly what they are searching for or what they are watching. But it would start to get recommended outside of the circles that it already does. I don't know if you guys know how YouTube works. It's very fucking confusing. But yeah. Anyway, so I've been rambling for a very, very long time now. Have you made it this far? Thanks. If you wouldn't mind throwing down a like, subbing and hitting that bell icon, that really does help out a lot more than you would think. Yeah, I'm still going to be playing the cycle in the future. I'll hit up the events, hit up the new seasons when they drop. But yeah. Thanks for watching. Probably see you in a Valheim or a Stalker video soon.
A heart! Oh, 2 hearts in one fucking thing! No way!
Alright, let's go kill Spoon.